Recollections of My Father. At 12, I watched for him in winter's dusk, a weary figure leaning into wind, his black lunch bucket clamped beneath his arms. At 17, we stalked November fields, struck pheasants from the rows of dried corn stalks. The only dialogue are 12-gauge guns. The space between us grew as we grew old. We talked of weather and of baseball games, our private thoughts kept safely locked away. 3 days before he died, I came to him, his skin transparent, fierce eyes filled with pain. We tried to speak, but habit held our tongues. Today, I stand again before his stone, chiseled names stretched down to the river's edge, the rusted rails and empty shops all mute. A sudden slant of sun, and I recall when I was 4 on a bright Easter morn, he carried me through the green grass of spring to find a blue egg in a hollow oak. Okay. The Search. Each year, as autumn light descends, I am drawn to seek some message from the silent world he traveled, a sign, a shadow, a whispered word. He could be that last leaf clinging to a barren branch, the solitary crow that turns its head to stare and does not fly as I approach, the vole that scours a patch of weeds for seed to fill its winter store. His could be that single set of prints that fill and dim in falling snow on the path to the river's edge. I do not see them rising from the other bank. I comb the ragged town with its boarded houses, empty streets, to catch from the corner of my eye a fleeting figure that always turns away. When I was 20 and lived in the city, in a rented room, he wrote one letter, half a page, of fishing in the rain. It held 2 wrinkled dollar bills. Let me see what else I want to do here. Hunting pheasants in November rain. A waste of time, the father says. The birds will go to ground on days like this. But the boy goes anyway, to fields that lie across the river, upwind from mills with their banners of red smoke and the orange pulse of refinery flares looming over rows of tacky houses. He relishes the solitude, the scent of gleaned fields, glisten of cold rain falling on rows of stunted hawthorn trees that mark the fence lines. This empty side of the river is no less gray or poor, yet to the boy it seems a different land and time. All afternoon he skirts the woods, wades ditches, ignores the squish of water in his boots, cold that creeps inside his rain-soaked canvas coat. As he turns toward home at dusk, a pheasant rises, shimmering in red and green and gold. It poses for a moment in midair, a watercolor sketched against a field of gray. The boy raises the gun, thumbs the hammer back, and without firing, tracks the graceful curve of flight that fades behind a row of trees. Unloading the gun, he crosses the bridge toward home. Leaving his wet boots and coat on the small back porch, he enters the kitchen where his father looks up from the evening paper. "No luck?" he asks. "No luck," the boy replies, choosing to keep the day to himself.
I'm very glad you read that one. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, that was Suzanne Tauke's favorite poem. She said she couldn't read it. Yeah. Oh. Silent night. On a warm Christmas Eve, a boy and his father walk through heavy fog to midnight mass. Mist dampens the sound of trains, the roar of mills. Neither speaks during the dark journey to a stage with solemn men in robes, candles everywhere, the organ's thunder. The boy listens to the strange keen of the priest, kneels when others kneel, takes comfort in the familiar strains of Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht. On the walk home, a cold rain falls. The father pulls down his hat, turns up the collar of his coat. The boy, hatless, dreams of standing at the prow of a ship, moist air bathing his face, the rumble of engines thrumming against the mighty Amazon, splitting an endless jungle night. The man, yoked by the weight of daily tasks and the fear of sin, does not dream at all. Their footsteps tap along the quiet streets, their figures melding into fog, into years. Yeah.
While you're thumbing, let me ask you a question too.
Sure.
That'd be nice. Now this is called Recollections of My Father.
Yes.
And we all know when it was published. But were these poems written over a period of time, or did you, as far as, was it,
I got this collection done fairly quick.
you did it all
Yeah.
kind of as a unit then?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to do the one about the letter to Miss McClurg?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There were two people. A woman at the library that helped me so much with reading and got me to read better stuff than they were doing at school because I didn't get in those classes. And if it hadn't been for her pushing me to better and better stuff, I probably wouldn't have gotten in the first college I went to because I didn't get those kind of grades in high school. Because but I loved to read, and that woman, I was reading 35, 40 books a year. And the reason I got in the college, they gave me a Miller analogy test, and I scored so high on it that in spite of the fact that I was a C student, they let me in there on, what do they call it? A temporary academic.
Probation?
Yeah, probation.
Okay.
And by the second semester, I was on probation and the dean's list at the same time. And I was 30 years old, and I went in and talked to the dean. I said, "Do you think that I could possibly get off of the And he said it would seem rational, wouldn't it? And he took me off. Letter to Miss McClurg. I am sorry about being tardy with this thank you for excusing me from the last study hall each day so I could work 3 hours after school grinding lenses. At 16, I did not know why you drew a line through 3 on the note I brought and changed it to 2.5, costing me half hour of pay each day and requiring that I stop at Al's Diner for a hamburger before going to work. In the blunt world of smoke and trains, where remote fathers carried their silence and despair each morning into the dust and fire of the mills, I was not honed to catch the flicker of concern that visited your stern blue eyes. Now 60 years have passed, and I do not know where to send this note to ask your pardon for missing the intent of that thin stroke of ink, a gesture drawn to put some meat on the bones of a skinny kid. But and I tried to look her up. She was dead too. The woman at the library. Mm-hmm. That's your worst regrets are what you didn't do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're always the worst ones. Accident in Broken Bow. In the high heat of afternoon, I sit on a bench in the square of this dry Nebraska town. A small boy speeds around the rim of the park on a bike too tall for his legs. There are only two of us, audience and actor, in uncontested race. On the third lap, he strikes the corner of a monument to an early pioneer. I pick him up. I think my leg is broke, he says, holding back the tears. There's an angry scrape above his shin, but the leg still seems to work. His bike has thrown its chain, front wheel turned aside. I straighten it, restring the gears. Still clenching teeth, he shows me his brother's watch, counts off the time he's still allowed to ride. 5 more laps at lesser pace, and with one quick wave he peels away toward home. And in this unrelenting heat that curls the willow's leaves, yet cannot wilt its stubborn heart, something in this small boy's grit speaks of the enduring strength that habits in these lonely places. But
Very much.
will that work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That habits in these lonely places. I love
Yeah.
that line.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to take trips to Nebraska. Nobody goes out there. I love the sand hills. People don't know about them. No one's, there's 25,000 square miles of sand hills in Nebraska, northern, western Nebraska. And they can't do anything with them. They raise cattle in Nebraska, but they have free range on them, like they did in the old days, and they still do in Texas someplace. Because they're not allowed to build those pens in the corner and bring the food in, because if you break that short grass prairie, it's all sand under there and it blows away. It just eats a great big swath right in it. But those places are, and where they put any kind of towers or telephone poles, anything up, they got all kinds of tires piled around there to keep the wind from getting under there, because the short grass prairie it's the same stuff as the tall grass is here, but they get less rain out there, so it's only about that high. You don't hear it; it's over your head. Yeah, but I'd love to go out there, and the people are so neat in those places. It's empty. Valentine, Nebraska. The students that go to school there, most of them board in town somewhere. They come from the ranches way out around there. And they can't drive to school there. They're too far. So they stay in town. But the interesting thing, the Nebraska school systems were among the top 10% in the nation in quality. It's an incredibly remote place, and the people are very private. They're good people, though. So nice. I drove one time down to another town south of Valentine, about 70 miles. I wanted to drive down there. It's all through the beautiful part of the sand hills, a very remote, austere country, but it's beautiful. And I only saw 3 cars in 70 miles. And there was a place I stopped because one of the sand hills was probably 500 feet high. And I took a camera up there to get some pictures. I climbed up there. And I looked down, and one of the 3 cars I'd seen, in a couple hours of driving, was a pickup truck, and it went by me. I saw him pass my car and stop and back up, and he got out and walked all the way up that hill. He saw me up there to see if I was all right. You know, they do that.
Yeah.
They're the nicest people, but it's a whole different bunch. I used to tell the people in England when they tell me they didn't like some of the Americans, I always ask them whether they went to, where they visited. I said, did you go to New York or Miami? And it was nearly always one of those two. And I said, the next time, go to Wisconsin or Iowa or Nebraska, and you'll find people there. They're as nice as anybody in England. But they all go to the wrong place.